How strong is Senjumaru Shutara, really? This video was requested by donation to the channel. If you wish to donate and request your own video, a link to our Discord server will be in the description. Now then, let's get into it.
Bankai, Katen Kyokutsu Karamatsu Shinju, Bankai, Senbon Zakura, Kagechi.
Bankai, Mogatsuki.
Bankai, Kannon Biraki, Benihime Aratami.
Senjumaru Shutara is known as the Great Weave Guardian of the Squad Zero, and despite the tremendous power displayed by her Bankai in the Thousand-Year Blood War, there are still infinite numbers of aspects of her powers which were not displayed in the anime. I'll divide Senjumaru's capability into three categories. First, raw power and speed. Second, abilities. And third, personal skill. The slightest use of Senjumaru's power could cause the heaven and earth of the three realms to shake. But how does one validate these statements and feats? Well, first of all, we could literally see the spiritual pressure reach the Serete and the living world. And it was directly stated that this spiritual pressure reached from one realm to the other. So the quake or shaking applies to all of the distance between the worlds, even from the perspective of planet Earth within the realm of the living, which in the end of chapter drawings, which exists within the context and setting of the story, has distant galaxies. It is not only implied to exist in the same solar system as our own Earth, but within the same observable universe, as subject areas like astrology depend on the divisions of the universe which can be seen, again depicting a very similar outer space. The living world dimension is potentially its own universe, as humans' understanding of the world with the same type of science that we possess in real life, believe that dimension to be a universe in itself, which with Soul Society as its counterpart would mean that Senjumaru was shaking a small multiverse. But even if we say that these worlds were just chunks of a bigger universe, and not separate universes with different types of matter which would merge back into one larger universe, Senjumaru's Bankai would be passively shaking an entire universe, with separate dimensions containing galaxies and oceans of stars. But there is still more to this feat because the dimensions are separate spacetimes, which means that the spiritual pressure would have to affect both matter and space to travel across separate dimensions. Adjoining the visible shaking effects with the actual translations means that Tenchi refers to the actual vault of the skies containing all heavenly bodies and the earth, or simply the universe itself. To make this even more apparent, the members of Squad Zero, besides Ichibei, created a blood oath, which requires them to sacrifice themselves to allow one person to use their Bankai. So the principles of the universe judge that just the presence of their collective Bankai would significantly affect the three realms of the universe. Applying this basic shaking feat across the universe for a single Bankai, even like a weak magnitude 4 earthquake, would yield multi-solar system level energy. This merely amounts to a multi-solar system level Bankai presence. But how much power could she generate if she actually fought? And this is where Senjumaru's true power shines, because a Bankai's presence is incomparable to its actual power. Take Konjigi Ashi Sogijizo or Kokujo Tengen Myo, which are also manifestation type Bankais, and consider the aura which comes from the presence of the Bankai to the aura which comes from an attack. Or Zanka no Tachi with enough presence to threaten an opponent, but enough attack power to vaporize them and their constructs. Furthermore, Bankai attack power can be multiplied beyond the thousands of times over, using special energy manipulation techniques, like Byakuya's Shukei Hakuteiken, which crams 1,000 blades into one, or Kenpachi Azashiro Soya, who merged Reishi from an area comparable to the size of Serete into the space of a small blade. But how do these energy manipulation techniques, which can drastically raise your power, apply to Senjumaru? It's because her Bankai ability grants her infinite possibilities. As I will explain later, her fabrics and the dimensions they create can produce infinite types of abilities according to her desire, thanks to the information revealed from the Bleach Expo. This means that her Reiroku, or spirit energy manipulation, has far more freedom and flexibility than any of the characters previously listed. Even in just Shikai, she commands all the reishi in the Royal Palace dimension. Also, a huge shout out to Schneizel, who not only provided information from the Bleach Expo, but in case you guys didn't know, was also responsible for the fan translation of Can't Fear Your Own World years ago. Now, if Senjumaru's Bankai presence is already multi-solar system level, and she can freely condense and manipulate her energy, in principle she can easily create constructs that can multiply her power to galaxy or even multi-galaxy levels. And there's also the godlike speed which accompanies her Bankai, which in the anime could reach the Earth from Royal Palace in mere minutes. Applying this time to the distance between the Earth and the closest visible galaxy would yield quintillions of meters per second as a speed value, or massively faster than light plus. a severe lowball which ignores the other realms, and the fact that Earth is distant galaxies away from any dimensional boundary. This is relevant to Senjumaru, who could react to Uryu, with the latter being able to react to the Bankai, which is of course propelled by its own Reiatsu, from the outside and from within thanks to our knowledge of Rei, which revealed that Reiatsu is a force from within Reishi particles as well, which would constitute Senjumaru's Bankai cloth. Senjumaru's Shikai Shigarami can produce an infinite amount of thread, which she can easily manipulate, coupled with the ability to control Reishi itself. She can even thread Reishi together to create constructs, as you might have seen in the fight against Uryu Ishida. And through stitching, she can also regenerate body parts that are missing, and create massive physical illusions capable of tricking even Ligebaro's senses. Illusions like a fake royal palace. And these are quinces who can observe spiritual activity all the way down to the atomic level. Her illusions can also move in real time according to the enemy's attacks. And all of this is just her Shikai. Senjumaru's Bankai can generate an infinite amount of tanmono or cloth, which she can manipulate as she sees fit. The kanji also implies that her Shikai threads either grow or extend infinitely. The latter meaning would mean that she produced an infinite amount of Reishi, and by that latter interpretation her Shikai would produce high universal amount of energy, if interpreted as extending rather than growing. And her Bankai can produce an amount of cloth and properties in response to the number and characteristics of the enemy. Furthermore, the Irazusando pocket dimension was created by Senjumaru, as in Ichigo was inside one of her cloth. In other words, inside Senjumaru's cloth are pocket dimensions, and these dimensions are weaved together with any property she desires, and there are an infinite number of varieties. In other words, Senjumaru weaves entire dimensions together in her cloth, and she determines the infinite rules or laws of these spaces. Imagine Shunsui Kiraku's Zanpakuto Shikai, which creates children's games and decide the rules, combined with Yukio's Invaders Must Die, in which he controls the dimensions, but with endless options and far more spiritual pressure. Furthermore, Senjumaru can use abilities which ignore your power level, abilities which are based on pure hacks. She was able to reflect Ligebaro's true X-axis, an ability with infinite penetrating power, as it ignores any number of barriers between the muzzle of the gun and the target, which means that Senjumaru can create constructs and abilities which can counter or produce infinite attack power. This form of penetration also transcends spatial abilities, as there are already abilities which can break through the very fabric of spacetime, with Ligebaro's X-axis transcending those. Along with the typical Shinigami skills like Kido, Zanjutsu, Flash Step, and so on, Senjumaru is called 1000 Arms because of her extremely quick work. And we saw her demonstrate this against Neinzel Weisel when she speed blitzed his instincts and remade his clothes. Even her base travel speed surprised the likes of Soifun, who is well known for her own prowess in Shunpo. And to blow your mind even further, she broke Mayuri's security code with ease, was compared to Mayuri and Kisuke in Can't Fear Your Own World in matters of intelligence, and in the past she was the head of a research and development team with Mayuri Kurotsuchi as one of her subordinates. So how powerful is Senjumaru? Yes,